ladies and gentlemen. It is truly an honor and a privilege for me to facilitate our final panel discussion for the conference today on raising the bar for quality, addressing an evolving role of the profession. Now, earlier today, we heard from our experts in panel session 1 on navigating the reporting landscape, preparing for the future of reporting, on the importance of sustainability discussions and how they are changing our reporting landscape. Now, our second panel highlighted the disruptive nature of technology and why it is important for accountants to be equipped with technological competencies and skills. Now, our environment and indeed technology are important key drivers of change, pushing our profession to evolve and respond to these emerging challenges. Now, together with our excellent panel of experts in this session, we will try to bring our discussion into how the Asean accountancy profession can best evolve to respond to these changes, and how stakeholders of the Asean accountancy profession can best facilitate our Asean accountants in their continuing capacity building journey. But first, let us kickstart our final panel with a presentation from our presenter. So, Sme Lyon, Portfolio Lead Professional Insights ACCA. So, Sme leads ACCA as a cutting-edge insights program that explores the implications and opportunities presented by advancing digital technologies, corporate governance, enterprise risk, financial and business transformation, and talent management. His extensive experience of financial management, corporate transformation, risk management, and talent development were gained during his career in industry with a number of leading FTSE 100 businesses, including Royal & Sun Alliance and Marks & Spencer. Sme, I know it is still very early in London right now. So
it's a dark and chilly London.
Well, thank you for joining us for this session. I mean, we truly appreciate your and of course ACCA support to our conference. As I'll pass this session to you, Sme, and perhaps give you the screen for the next 25 minutes.
Super, thank you very much, Orki. And on behalf of ACCA, it's great to be here with the ASEAN Federation and supporting this very important event today. I'm very much looking forward to what I'm sure will be a rich and illuminating panel discussion very shortly. I'm actually just going to share my screen, if I can. Yeah. Find presentation.
Can you share a screen, Sme?
I will indeed. Yes, it's just coming through now. Just let me know when you can see that, please.
Yes, we can see it now.
Fabulous. Okay, well, as I say, thank you so much for the invitation, and it is fabulous to be here. So this particular session is focused on looking at how the ASEAN profession can best evolve to respond to the emerging challenges that lay ahead. I wanted to start by saying from ACCA's viewpoint that when we think about the challenges ahead, we also think about the opportunity, particularly in the region. You know, the profession is at a point of inflection. To some extent, we're masters of our own fortune and our own destiny, our own future. So this is an opportunity that has to be taken. And ACCA, just like other professional accountancy organisations across the world and in the ASEAN region, are really essential in helping our current future members realise those ambitions and those opportunities. So what I wanted to do was tee up the session by sharing with all of you today ACCA's thinking on that future opportunity landscape and what that means for professional accountancy organisations. Now, we know the future, particularly as the pandemic has shown us, is never 100% certain, but there is a certain narrative here. There is a certain knowns, there are certain thematics that are going to have an impact on the profession, the role of professional accountants, of course, the role of professional accountancy organisations as we look ahead. And some of those issues are obviously going to pick up what we've heard from in previous sessions today. But let's start. I wanted to start actually by reminding ourselves of the contribution that the professional accountants make in the value story, because this is important context, because irrespective of the sector in which they may work or the specific role they perform, accountants have always played a critical role in helping organisations create, protect and report value. They do perform jobs that make a difference, and they do perform roles that are absolutely integral to helping organisations be sustainable for the long term. And those contributions are going to become even more important in the future as more stakeholders rightly expect and demand organisations to be purpose-led, to operate ethically, to operate with transparency, and of course, to seek to create value for all stakeholders. And I think we've already heard in previous sessions today, haven't we, the importance of technology change in our future. But actually, as jobs in accountancy are reimagined, as work constructs change, as careers are disrupted, that means human capability as well as digital ingenuity in the profession. And that's going to be critical for our future. So that presents a real opportunity. And it's a real imperative to professional accountancy organisations to support current as well as future members, of course, to exploit those opportunities in the future. So what about that? What about that future? So here at ACCA, we see five thematics that are really shaping the role of accountants in the region in the future. And those include changes in the global economy in the region, and that's naturally going to have a huge impact. We think about the growing environmental challenge, and linked to that, the changing risk landscape. We think about societal, technology and workforce changes as well. Now, those drivers of change naturally impact on how we as professional accountancy organisations help our members respond and thrive, I guess, in the face of those challenges. And it's also important here, I think, to recognise the interdependencies of these five core thematics. So clearly changes that we can expect to see economically in the region are going to be linked through to what's happening in the environmental agenda. Societal shift, technology developments, they're going to have a huge impact on organisation priorities, business models, workforce strategies for the future. And all of that is indelibly going to impact the future role of the profession as well. And actually, business leaders in the region that we've been working with over the last 12, 18 months see those challenges and changes too. So we've been holding lots of conversations with CEOs, CFOs across the ASEAN region, really to understand their concerns, their challenges and thoughts on how those changes are impacting our profession and its future. And you can see some of the examples cited on this slide here, from the changing role of governments in response to the COVID-19 economic impacts, increased stakeholder demands around the environmental agenda, the technology impacts, workforce change, and so on. So there's a clear sense of the complexity. There's a clear sense of the speed of change. But also there's a clear sense of the opportunities that are being presented actually over the coming years in the region to the profession. I'll talk first to the economic impacts in the ASEAN. And as you can see, hopefully you can see on this slide, there are two charts that I wanted to share. So the first one, the top one, is from the World Bank, which is from its latest economic update in October of this year. And actually that shows a potential reversal of fortune for many of the economies in the region from earlier in 2021 and also in comparison to 2020. Now, naturally, much of that change is driven by the challenges presented by the growth from the Delta variant, potentially longer term risks that the pandemic has presented in terms of reduced growth, increased inequality in the region. And the bottom chart, if I can divert your attention to that, is actually something that was featured in ACCA's own Global Economic Conditions survey from October of this year, so last month, which actually again is from the World Bank, but it shows, I think it illuminates the quite precarious fiscal positions facing many economies in the region, and of course particularly the debt challenges they are contending with, which has been exacerbated by, of course, by the COVID crisis, but also potentially is going to be further exacerbated by changes elsewhere in the global economy, so things like US interest rates and so on. But even in the face of what is quite a challenging economic landscape right now, accountants in the region can play an important role in helping businesses and organisations respond, we believe. And there are a few obvious examples here. So we think, and if I work from left to right, we think about the opportunities for accountants to play that vital role in helping governments rebalance their finances, particularly in the wake of the COVID crisis, bringing strong public financial management to bear. We think about the role in helping support the development and infrastructure around international trade and regulation. We think about how accountants can bring their finance and business skills to drive more efficient environmental friendly supply chains in the region. So it's really important, as we believe, it's really important as PAOs to think about how we can support our members, our current members, our future members in those specific areas where they can make that real vital contribution to local businesses and the local economy. Now, if I turn to the second major driver of change, which of course is the environmental challenge, we're all familiar with the climate emergency and the implications for organisations around reporting requirements. We've seen obviously the creation, and I think we've touched on this earlier today, potentially, we've seen the creation of the New Value Reporting Foundation. The World Economic Forum has released new standards on consistent reporting for sustainable value creation. And we know about the IFRS Foundation and the Global Sustainability Standards Board too. So there's a huge amount happening in terms of wider disclosure in the marketplace and in the region right now. But actually, again, for us, the opportunity for the profession goes beyond external reporting. So we think about the role of accountants helping businesses account for, manage and measure their natural capital impacts more effectively. We think about the role of the profession and the role of accountants in offering new services around ESG assurance. We think about the role of the professional accountant in helping organisations understand, for example, the risks and the emerging risks associated with ESG and so on. And again, as professional accountancy organisations, we have such an important role to play in equipping our members and our future members with the capabilities to influence organisations to drive the change required in this space. And the data on this slide is actually taken from a study we published last month, which shows, I think, pretty clearly ACCA member sentiment on the specific issue of climate change and how organisations can further respond to the challenges. And if I take your attention towards the top of this slide, you can see the clear recognition of the potential future role of accountants in helping organisations tackle some of these issues. But actually, at the same time, there is some recognition that there's a way to go in ensuring finance teams and accountants play that critical central role in helping organisations incorporate climate change considerations into financial decision making. So we do need to support our members, our future members, in upskilling here in this space and extending their contribution. And that can be everything, we think, from influencing executives on this agenda, ensuring climate change, broader ESG related issues are incorporated into organisations' strategy, helping businesses think about how they can better price in climate related and ESG risks into their organisation, as well as helping businesses source climate related ESG relevant data. So huge opportunities in this space for our profession globally and actually within the region. And very recently, ACCA identified particularly sustainability skills as one of our core capabilities that all accountants will need in the future. So let's think about that opportunity again. Next, I wanted just to touch on societal change. And I don't think there can be any doubt that we all, as professional accountancy organisations, need to be very aware of the societal changes that are and impacts that our members are facing. There's an almost inexhaustible list of societal challenges that we face right now within particularly within the region. We think about the role of government in society. We think around concerns on trust, inclusivity. We think about issues such as data privacy, ethical leadership, And there are other trends as well, you know, demographics, rapid business model change, as societal preferences shift. We think about the transformation in the education landscape, and you can see some of that alluded to on this slide here. Access to digital economy skills and education, that's going to be essential over the next decade, particularly in this region, we believe, as the economy evolve and that demand for new workforce capabilities emerges. So we understand how education is transforming, and particularly, I think, because of technology and the accessibility around that. And there's just such an amazing talent pool, that potential talent pool in the region for the profession to access in the future. But it's incumbent on all of us to ensure that the profession remains attractive, particularly to the new generation coming in. And I think we'll talk about that shortly in the panel session as well. And the ways actually in which we evolve our education offering and support workplace learning in particular is absolutely vital to that. And if I may take the liberty to talk some of the developments that were undertaken at ACCA in response to both that shifting landscape in education and actually the changing nature of careers in accountancy. You know, we continue to build our global learning offering out with a wide portfolio of learning solutions, certificates, and they're just fundamentally designed to ensure that our members, our future members, have the capabilities and provides employability for the future. And, you know, you can see some of those offerings on this slide here in terms of how our learning offering is really trying to evolve to meet those changing needs. Just a couple of words on technology. We know across this region, in particular, mobile technologies, rapid access to information, that's going to help to continue to transform connectivity. We're seeing a constant stream of new technologies, from the Internet of Things to automation, emerging AI, machine learning, right the way through to cybersecurity impacting the role of accountants. But the future is also about new ways of working and connectivity. You know, 5G is expanding, new platforms, communication tools. So I guess what we're seeing is ever more sophisticated ways to connect, share, and work differently. And again, that's a brilliant opportunity. It's a brilliant opportunity for accountants across the region to reimagine the work that they do and to embrace technology to really drive and add value. And again, you can see on this slide here, and this is survey data from a recent study by ACCA exploring the future of finance in the region, and we compared data sets from Southeast Asia to global. It's quite interesting. I take your attention towards the right-hand side chart here. Our Southeast Asia respondents comparatively are really pushing digital adoption, more advanced technologies such as AI, machine learning, analytics technologies into their finance teams. And we expect that pace of change to continue naturally. And of course, this is essential for all of us as professional accountancy organisations to continue to support and equip our members, our future members, with those core digital and technology skills. Now, before I move on and we move over to the panel, I did want to just talk about workforce change as well and finish this off, because that obviously is having a big impact as well across the region. You know, we've all seen that sudden shift to distributed work, home working, the future possibilities around hybrid work or work anywhere, and that sort of steals the headlines a little bit. But actually, I think from ACCA's perspective, we do all see an almost endless list of other trends shaping the workforce of tomorrow. I've alluded to some of these already, but just to recap on these, you know, we think about innovation, we think about the need for collaboration, we think about how organizations are shifting to more agile project-based working practices in many areas, including finance, virtual collaboration, greater cross-team working. And all of that change is naturally going to demand new capabilities, new skills for accountants to acquire. And of course, we have a younger generation entering the profession as well, where career paths are going to change and where that need to continuously upskill to ensure the capabilities remain current is going to be absolutely vital, and all of that's going to impact the future systems and education provision. And finally, in response to all of that, last month I did want to just share ACCA launched its new global capability framework, and that really talks to those core skills that we believe are going to be needed by all accountants in the future. And alongside that, we launched a new global resource called Career Navigator. And that really is a resource that links those core capabilities through to our global learning offering, career opportunities for the future as well. So do have a look at that on the ACCA website. I hope that gives you all a sense of a quick tour really around the opportunities and the changes that we see impacting the profession globally, but also critically in the region, as well as some of the interventions and the support activities that we're thinking about here at ACCA. I do think, I said it at the start of my presentation, I do think we are at a point of inflection in accountancy, but it's a point which is presenting huge opportunities for the profession. I think all of us as professional accountancy organisations have a responsibility and an opportunity ourselves to support our members to flourish in the future. So on that note, I hope that gives some context for our panel session, and I'll hand back to you, Orki, and I look forward to the discussion.
Yes, and thank you, Jamie, for that excellent and comprehensive presentation. I mean, I particularly appreciate your sharing on the 5 drivers of change. I mean, economy, environment, society, technology, and workforce. I think environment and technology in particular are 2 important drivers, actually highlighted in our first 2 panel discussions. So I think the 3 panel discussions that we have so far for today flow quite nicely. And I believe that this final panel discussion that we are having right now should bring all the discussion into, I guess, the role of the profession itself, the PAOs, regional bodies, AFA as the global body, but also later, perhaps you could also try to address, and I will try to get your insight, the panelists, into what you believe the accountants needs to do now for them to be better prepared for the future. So I hope we can touch on that during our panel discussion. Thank you again, Jamie. So to continue with our session, please allow me to briefly introduce our panelists for today. So first we have Ms. Jelena Misita, Chair of PAO Development Advisory Group, International Federation of Accountants, or AFA. So Jelena is a board member of the Union of Accountants, Auditors, and Financial Workers of Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. She served on various profession-focused boards, committees, and represent her country in international organizations. Now, Jelena has past experience in PAO development and strengthening the accountancy profession in jurisdictions that require both strategic and practical assistance in adoption and consistent implementation of high standards of professionalism. I guess good morning to you, Jelena. I know it's quite an early time for you as well.
Good morning, Aki. Thank you for a kind introduction. It's not so chilly and dark as in London, but it's still too early for me.
And thank you. It's our pleasure having you on this panel this afternoon, Jelena. Thank you again.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you.
Yes, and our second panelist is Haja Hairani Binti Haji Sulaiman, Chair of the Asean Cpa Coordinating Committee. I have to say recently appointed in October 2021 as a representative from Brunei Darussalam. Hairani currently holds the post of the Accountant General of Treasury Department, Ministry of Finance and Economy, Brunei Darussalam. She also holds the chair position of the Public Accountants Oversight Committee of Brunei Darussalam. With over 29 years of diverse experience in the fields of taxation, accounting, and finance, Hairani has previously served in the Revenue Division, Ministry of Finance and Economy as Director, Brunei Darussalam Deposit Corporation as Chief Executive Officer, and Tabung Amanah Pekerja as Acting Managing Director. Assalamualaikum, Hairani.
Waalaikumsalam, Mr. Pertama. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. It is our honor actually to have you on board as well. And please address Ms. Oki.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, will do.
Thank you, Harini. And our next panelist is Professor Laxman Watawala, Chairman of International Relations Committee, South Asian Federation of Accountants, or SAFA. Now, this committee was instrumental in the setting up of 2 PAOs in Afghanistan and Maldives. Professor Watawala is a former president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka and a former president of SAFA. Professor Watawala is an adjunct professor at the Deakin Business School, Department of Accounting, Faculty of Business and Law, Deakin University. He is the founder president of Association of Accounting Technicians of Sri Lanka, founder president of Institute of Certified Management Accountants of Sri Lanka, and also the founder president of the Institute of Chartered Professional Managers of Sri Lanka. Welcome, Professor Watawala.
Thank you, and maybe it's good afternoon to you there, okay?
And I guess good morning to you, sir.
Yeah, good morning. It's morning here. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir. And finally, last but definitely not least, we have Professor Terachai Arunruang Siriler, or commonly known in the region as Professor Terry. Now, Professor Terry is the Vice President of the Federation of Accounting Professions of Thailand, or TFAC, for the period of 2020 to 2023. But Professor Terry is also the current Deputy President of AFA and the former chairman of the Asean Cpa Coordinating Committee in 2017 and 2019. So as you can see, Professor Terry hopefully can bring a different perspectives into our discussion later as well from his many positions in the region. And finally, Professor Terry is an assistant professor of Department of Accounting, Thammasat Business School, Thammasat University. Professor Terry, welcome.
Thank you, Oki. So I'm really excited here today. So I think we can have a lot of insights to discuss today. Thank you, Oki.
Yes, thank you, Professor Terry. And of course, our presenter, Jamie, will also be joining us in this panel discussion. Okay, so I would like to start our discussion by asking our panelists, I guess, on your thoughts about the drivers of change, because I think this term, drivers of change, have been repeated quite for a few times actually today, even in panel discussion 1 and also panel discussion 2. So let me start perhaps with Hairani. I mean, representing, I guess a very important grouping, a regional grouping in ASEAN. The Asean Cpa Coordinating Committee. I mean, one important regional initiative in ASEAN that has been driving changes actually in current and future outlook of the profession in our region is the ASEAN MRA on Accountancy Services, or perhaps commonly known for many in the region as the Asean Cpa Initiative. So perhaps, Hairani, to start our discussion, maybe if you could please briefly share to our audience what this initiative is, and how do you think it is changing the way our stakeholders are looking at the ASEAN accountancy profession?
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, distinguished speakers, panelists, facilitator, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so as a background, the ASEAN Mutual Recognition Arrangement, we call it MRA in short, was signed by all 10 ASEAN member states in 2014. So it introduced a qualification known as ASEAN Chartered Professional Accountant. So ASEAN CPA, as Oki mentioned just now. So this enables the professional qualification of accountancy professions among ASEAN member states to be mutually recognized and gives a key to the greater access to the high growth ASEAN market that leads to more opportunities. So the objectives of this MRA is to facilitate the mobility of accountancy services professionals across ASEAN member states. So it's also strengthened the current framework for the provision of accountancy services in the AMS, and also it also allows the exchange of information to promote adoption of best practices. So in short, we give allows all the to facilitate the mobility of all these accountancy professions across the ASEAN. And also under this arrangement, so professional accountant, they must fulfill the qualification and conditions set by the ASEAN CPA. So if they fulfill that requirement, then they will able to apply to register as an ASEAN CPA through their monitoring committees of the host countries. So this initiative basically gives the right to those who successfully apply for the qualification to use this ASEAN CPA title, which is exclusively for the ASEAN member states only. And so it gives a new meaning for the ASEAN accountancy profession. So in other words, if they want to have, they can work over a crossover to other member states. So with the same qualification, and but they have to abide with all the rules and regulation of that host countries. So if they want to register or they intend to practice in other ASEAN nations, they are required to apply directly to their own national body, national accountancy body, or professional regulatory authority, their PRA, in the host country. So they will be registered as a foreign professional accountant. We call it RFPA. So we'll have to work they will have to work in collaboration with their local professional accountant in the host countries. So in this way, it will change the way of how our stakeholders are looking into the profession, as it sets the bar of the quality and elevates the status of the accountants in the ASEAN regions. So to end that, as of 31st October, there are about 5,987 ASEAN CPAs registered across the ASEAN. However, there's only one RFPA currently registered. So I think for that, just as introduction from me. Thank you. Okay.
And sure, Hairani. And I think that's important to set up the context of our regional, especially to set up the regional context of our discussion, knowing that many of our participants today are ASEAN accountants or aspiring ASEAN CPAs, I would say. And that 5-number registered ASEAN CPA that you share with us, I think it is our collectively, it is our homework to try to further promote the importance of this initiative. I mean, if we can share, if I can share, based on the number of the membership of our 10 AFA primary members alone. So basically, our primary members are the 10 ASEAN PAOs, each representing an ASEAN member state. Based on the number of their membership alone, they should be about more than 200,000 members between the 10 collectively. Of course, this includes professional accountants or those considered as an associate member, so they are on the journey towards becoming a professional accountants. For some PAOs also, they recognize the student members as part of their membership. But I guess my point is that the potential is definitely there for us to work together to try to improve, I guess, the acceptance of our CPAs, Hairani. So they would go and pursue to become an ASEAN CPA, to be recognized as an ASEAN CPA.
Yeah. And I believe the qualifications are all very minimum. They have, they need to complete their accountancy degree. That's the minimum part, and apart from nationality of ASEAN. So that the qualification and the conditions are quite minimum for those, so can join the ASEAN CPA.
Yes, and I think why this is important, why this is relevant to our discussion today is because with the title comes the expectation, right? Stakeholders' expectation. And we are talking about the drivers of change. And I think this is a very important driver of change in our region, because with this initiative, because of this initiative, many of the stakeholders of the profession are trying to make sure that their members, especially the PAOs, trying to make sure that their members can meet the requirements. Even it is a minimum requirements, but the PAOs are actually making changes to make sure that their members are well equipped and can meet those requirements. So thank you for that, Hairani.
Okay.
But next up, perhaps I will next go to Professor Watawala. As a representative of regional body, SAFA, South Asian professor. Can you share perhaps with our audience what has been the main driver of change for the accountancy profession in your region?
Thank you very much. Okay, let me also thank AFA for extending this invitation to the South Asian Federation of Accountants. I think I must, since most of you are from the AFA region, let me give you a short description of SAFA, or the South Asian Federation of Accountants. We were set up in 1984, you know, so a long time ago, maybe I think for 37 years ago. I was one of the people who signed the declaration to form the South Asian Federation of Accountants. So I'm indeed happy that today I have been able to be present here. And at that time, we had maybe 7 bodies who signed this from India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka. But one of the main objectives at that time was to form accountancy bodies in the regions that did not have PAOs. So first of all, we started from Nepal. Nepal was our first objective, and of course, maybe it takes a little time because these have to be incorporated by an act of parliament. It took about maybe 7 to 10 years, but now Nepal is there. Nepal chartered accountants are there. Then thereafter, we started 2 others. That was, of course, started under my committee, the International Relations Committee, where we started in the Maldives and Afghanistan. Now, Maldives have already set up their CPA organization, and Afghanistan too have set up, and we are now going for the 3rd one, which is Bhutan. So we have really played a major role in setting up the POs in those areas. Then if you look at the number of members, it's about 375,000 members. And I must say that we have very, very important areas of conferences, meetings, various committees. One of the major events that we organize is called the SAFA, the Best Presented Accounts, where we get the corporate reporting from all the countries, and then we give the best presented accounts or the BPA awards. So this is one of the main things. Of course, we have the conferences and other things that go on. So SAFA is really a very, very key area. And of course, if you know India, one of our SAFA countries, maybe the next IFAC conference would be hosted in India. This year, Sri Lanka hosted the CAPA conference. So we can see that we are also, SAFA has been playing a major role, and in this area, doing quite a lot. Now, if you really look at this area of the accounting profession, SAFA has many committees. Ours is the International Relations Committee, and of course, we are coordinating with AFA, and we are very happy that we have been able to enter into this collaboration with AFA. And I've just heard what was mentioned about the AFA recognition of the qualification. Now, this is something that we have been discussing, but we have still not been able to work it out because, of course, there are various other restrictions in the respective countries. But I'm sure for the next board meeting, I will put this idea again to them to see how this could be done. So then on the other thing, of course, as a changing profession, we have both the chartered accountants and the management accountants. If you look at the 4 countries, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, we have the both chartered accountants, management accountants. Of course, in Sri Lanka, the management accountants came later because I signed at that time as the president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka. Then in 1989, we set up what was called the Institute of Certified Management Accountants body, the Sri Lankan body, with technical collaboration from CMA Canada, which is now amalgamated with CPA Canada. So we have been really working very closely with most of these bodies. Then the other important area that I just want to focus on you, of course, CAPA has been talking a lot on the accounting technicians, but they have not been able to really make it something to do it. But in 1987, I was then the president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka. We set up the accounting technicians. I don't know whether in your region, whether you all have promoted that, but that is one of the most successful ones where the middle level accountants come in, you know, because at that time there was a Asian Development Bank report and they wanted to do this, but then we went in that direction and set up the accounting technicians, because at that time it was noted that for every professional accountant, you will need maybe 10 to 15 technicians that should be there. But now with the technology changing, it may be that you need more technological accountants to come into this field. Now, the biggest challenge that we have had is, of course, is COVID-19 pandemic. Now, SAFA is a region that has really accepted this challenge. all our meetings have been online. I'm sure you also would have been doing the same thing, our board meetings, our committee meetings, then all our activities on the students, the education, the examinations, all have been done online. So that's another great method by which we have been able to keep our student population going. Then on the member side, where the CPD activities, which we have been doing, because one thing that I should say now, today we are having this AFA conference, you can see how many are connecting from the different countries. That's a very, very great thing, because if we were to travel and do all these things, organizing, it takes so much of effort, but the technology has really made us very great. So I think these are some of the key things that maybe I can explain later, the matters that would come up.
Yes, thank you for that, Professor Watawala. I think based on your explanation, I think we can start to see some similarities with some of the things in our region as well, in terms of leveraging technology to facilitate our, I guess, networking, not just in the region, but also with partners and stakeholders outside of ASEAN as well. But before we go into that, because I do want to bring the discussion just to focus on technology, because throughout the day, I think this is one of the key words in the discussion as well. It's been mentioned many times. But I guess just a final question on this particular, I guess, the first part of our discussion on the drivers of change. I would like to perhaps ask Professor Terry. I mean, we've heard from Professor Watawala on his, I guess, our perspective as a regional body SAFA. But let us dive into, I guess, Thailand as an example of a jurisdiction in the region. I mean, at the country level, I mean, does a jurisdiction such as Thailand share the same observation when it comes to key drivers of change affecting your accountancy profession? And what are the Thai stakeholders' perceptions and expectation of the role of accountants in Thailand?
Okay, thank you, Oki. So I have reasons to the German and very good message, and I do totally agree with the 5 drivers of change: economy, environment, society, technology, and workforce. But for me, I think the key drivers, I think all of this can link together. So I think the root cause of change for my perception is the rapidly change in technology. So because I would like to take time a little bit to explain about this. So you can think that in Thailand, I think it's not just in Thailand, but I think it's may cover off other the rest of the world as well. So the first event or situation is that the change of technology occur. So you can think that the rapidly developments of the technology, what happened. So when you think that this thing is very fast growing, and the controls of technology cannot chase up. So what happened? So when the technology fast growing, what happened in the society? So when we have loss of controls of technology growing, what happened? So for my experience, I can observe about the overwhelming natural resources consumptions, and then what happened, and the effect will affect about the environment disaster, so something, and for another thing, for the loss of controls of technology fast growing, what happened on the behavior of the humans or people. So it's some kinds of the two ways happenings. The first is like the good behavior, and another is the bad behavior. For the good, it's okay for people can use the high technology to give them like easier something, but for in the bad way, what happened, they can exploit any benefit is something like a selfish something. So what happened into the society matters. So, and the environment and society matters, and problems finally will affect the organizations and what happened on this. So you can see the stakeholders now, so they gonna see a lot of everything in the like an ecosystem can link together, and what happened, you can see, so everything's occurring from the root cause of technology fast growing, and will affect in the bad way. For example, the natural disaster something. So the organizations cannot sustain in the economy something. So, and the high expectations, especially in Thailand, but for my perception, it's not just in Thailand. So the stakeholders keep an eye on the organizations a lot, what happened and what the thing of organizations can do in order to alleviate the pains on the environment, on the society. So for the expectation, much more demanding, and to think about the accountants should be like a actuator, should be like a mediator between organizations and the external stakeholders. So moreover, so I think that the expectation have more require the professional accountants as a comprehensive information provider as well. So it's a challenging thing. So I think it's now today we're talking about much more on the sustainable matters, right? So I think it's time to discuss about this matter very much, because it's like a picture to reflect about the pictures and the figures of the organization to comprehensively to discourse all of the anchors and aspects of information for the stakeholders. So I think this the much more expectation from stakeholders in Thailand. I think it's not different from other rest of the world. So I think, thank you, Oki.
Thank you, Professor Terry. And I think the one point that you've highlighted that I completely agree with is that it's important for us to understand these different drivers of change. I mean, if you look at the 5 that Jamie has mentioned in his presentation, it's important for accountants to understand those 5 drivers of change, because as you have rightly mentioned, Professor Terry, our clients, our stakeholders will refer to us, will ask us about what do we think about these drivers of change. I mean, accountants as a trusted partners. I mean, our clients, our stakeholders put their trust to us accountants to give them advices on how to deal with these drivers of change. So that's why I think that's one of the reasons why it's important for us to understand how these drivers of change are affecting or making changes, and then affecting not just our profession, but also our landscape in general, including our economic landscape. But talking about these drivers of change, I would like to, I guess, pivot our discussion to one of them. Is one very important one is technology. I mean, I think technology is no longer just a tool or a platform. I mean, it is an integral part of many businesses and organization strategies. So it is, as many have rightly said today, a key driver of change. So let us talk more about this technology. And perhaps I will start with Yelena. I mean, we've seen an accelerated need for PAOs use digital technologies to, I guess, create new or modify existing business processes, Yelena, including member and student experience. But many PAOs may be struggling with where to begin. So, I mean, from the perspective of IFAC as a global body for the profession, I mean, maybe you could share with us how IFAC is supporting PAOs in dealing with this immense challenge.
Thank you so much. Just before I start, for those who may not know, please just allow me to introduce the advisory group briefly. So the IFAC PAO Development and Advisory Group helps IFAC support strong, sustainable professional accountancy organization around the world as a part of IFAC capacity building efforts. We do this through a specific mandate to advise, advocate for PAO development, provide assistance and mentoring to PAOs to meet IFAC's membership benchmarks and enable access to resources and expertise. So the advisory group meets quarterly through the year to achieve our objectives, and in our meeting, we often joined by network partners. So like the AFA, CPA, and SAFA, which provide an important regional perspective during our discussion. So I would like to highlight it. Anything produced by the advisory group is oriented to a global level. So network partners help to ensure that outputs could be applied at the regional level as well. So the past year, we had an opportunity to share more of our work in ICA Journal and AFA Associate. And in 2022, we look forward to welcoming a new member of advisory group from PI-CPA. The collaboration with AFA will continue to remain strong. Now to address to your question, we are all aware that digitalization is crucial to the sustainability and relevance of professional accountancy organization and their ability to recover and thrive going forward. Just in our last meeting in October, we especially discussed online exams and the opportunities and challenges it presents for POs in serving members, students, and other stakeholders. These insights will be forthcoming on the AFA Global Knowledge Gateway. At a higher level, this year, IFAC rolled out the free PO Digital Readiness Assessment tool in the partnership with CloudThink, a UK-based technology company. This web-based PO self-assessment tool helps IFAC member organization and professional accountancy organization gauge where they are on their digital journey. Using 11 pillars and 120 aspects of digital transformation. Alongside the tool, IFAC also launched the PO Digital Transformation Series, which include a series of support articles, blogs, and videos. The advisory group is a strong supporter of this digital readiness assessment tool and the transformation series. Advancing the digital capacity of POs is an important part of being able to properly support professional accountants and prepare for the future. It also provides a greater opportunity for greener interaction by reducing the travel. Several advisory group members contributed videos to the PO Digital Transformation Series to share our experience, and we all connected with the POs in our respective regions to encourage POs to take advantage of this tool. The advisory group's primary message is that this is a change management journey for POs, and it will not happen overnight, and it's okay to start small and take the action that makes sense for your context. The assessment tool can help POs more confidentially determine their priorities and needs and articulate where they should be going with their digitalization plans. Again, we also partnered with the network partners like AFA, CCA, and SAFA to organize roundtables to advance PO's digital understanding and readiness. This initiative has turned into donor engagement opportunity with the World Bank, who contracted consultants to assist 20 IFAC member organizations with completing the assessment and discuss the importance of digital transformation with the PO's boards. There were approximately 90 IFAC member organizations that completed the digital readiness assessment tool. This data, after being anonymized, will go into a global report that will allow IFAC to identify the most pressing needs of PO and strategize the next steps to support organization. And heading back over to you.
Thank you, Jelena, for that. And I think AFA as a network partner of IFAC, we also try to work with IFAC and also support IFAC to try to disseminate many information about these resources. And I can definitely say that many of these tools and resources, because we've also been talking about different tools and resources to help accountants, even since our discussion this morning, many of these tools and resources actually are readily available online as well. And AFAC has made many of these tool resources readily available for anyone to have a look, perhaps even download. And perhaps if you see the need to try to tailor it to your respective jurisdiction, that's something that you can do as well, right? I mean, we don't really have to reinvent the wheel and try to prepare everything from scratch. I mean, one of the things that we can leverage on is our network as a global network of the accountancy profession, and I think that's one of the benefit of having IFAC as our I guess global body for the profession. So we can have all of these tools and resources available to us as well, not just the POs or regional bodies, but also the accountants as well. And thank you for sharing that, Helena. Look, on this particular topic on technology, I mean, I would like to now go to Professor Watawala, perhaps Professor. I mean, just to ask, I mean, what's your view on technology as a key driver of change for our profession? And perhaps, I don't know, perhaps if you could share with us, has SAFA or any of your member organizations introduced any key initiatives to help accountants in your region with their digital transformation journey?
I think all of you will realize that technology really came to the front line as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. In all our countries, today we have done certain things which we would have not normally done, or which may have taken years if not for the COVID-19 pandemic. So I think we must be very thankful that this revolution or this pandemic that came has really maybe transformed the accounting profession, not only accounting profession, but all professionals and also all countries. Just making a few comments on what Jamie spoke on his topic, I think it was very well presented. He spoke on the very, very important things. But I would also suggest that one of the areas where the accountants can play a major role, you mentioned about value creation, but I think we should give more emphasis on value creation. Because even in our integrated reporting, which as far as our own professional body is concerned, where we do contest, where we have special integrated reporting awards for companies. I know that a lot of the professional bodies are doing that. The value creation is today very, very important. Of course, connected that comes, of course, sustainability matters that are there. But one area which no one speaks on is the costing and expenditure. I think Jamie just mentioned briefly on public sector accounting. But today, one of the basic things, you see, today as professional accountants, we are looking at maybe the higher terms. But unfortunately, sometimes we forget the basic things. You see, this costing and expenditure is really something that our ABC of accounting is that, if you don't do that, that's going to be a major problem, because I have seen this, that not very many have given this, but I would like, maybe Jamie is here from IFAC, you should take that, because you have really not looked at this area. I have never seen any papers on this costing and expenditure control, because with the COVID-19 pandemic, that is the most important thing. Now look at our professional bodies. One thing is our income would have come down. But similarly, our expenditure in certain areas would have come down. In fact, if you look at your own budget, you will see that the foreign expenditure, that is the traveling costs, the various other costs have all come down. This technology has taken us to new heights. It has saved millions of rupees. So technology is really a tool that we need to use, because I can say for myself now, even for the SAFA region, even for the SAFA member bodies, they spend millions and millions of rupees of traveling even for the SAFA board meetings. I'm sure AFA is also doing that, getting them, going to hotels, doing all these things, the time expenditure, but the technology has enabled us to get into one field without much problem. So maybe we can have one meeting together, but all others, let's use the new technology. So technology is really changed, transformed the world. But I think as mentioned in the Sustainability Development Goals, education is the most important area. I have seen even in Jamie's report about, I think, the education. Now, education is something that we can spread as a result of this technology. Because it's not only at the professional education, university education, the school education, and where we come into the new scheme of hybrid. That is, we combine the technology and the physical, and we go into the hybrid mode. Now that's, I think, would be the future of our, not only the education, in every field. Now technology, if you ask for the audits, the auditing firms today, they are using technology. They are not visiting most of these firms, but the use of technology has enabled to carry out these audits and do it very, very well. If you want to, now this conference is a similar thing, where all of them are now maybe from their homes or from their offices doing this. So technology, I think, is really a game changer, and we should use this for the benefit of everyone. Now I can just tell you that now earlier, we were doing our programs. Now, one is the communication program, where we have the speechcraft program, which we have to do. We get into the classroom and do it. But as a result of the COVID, we could not get it. Then what did we do? We did it online. Earlier, everyone said you can't do it. But this COVID-19 has made things which were impossible to be done. And we could see the changes, how the students were able to meet these challenges and gain it. It's similar for the IT training, education, now examinations. Now the most important, a lot of them say it is easy to do the education, but can you do the examinations? Now that's what all these AFA countries are doing. In Sri Lanka, our body, we have tied up with Pearson's because we feel that getting the international support is also good. And then that will also give, because we have to look at the governance, we have to look at the controls, because not only doing it, that's the most important thing in here. So I feel that this will really change the accounting profession, bring us up to higher levels, and also all countries will be able to, I must say, cut their cost, go on a lean diet, and make enable to maybe, if possible, to improve and get higher income. If not, you go on a lean diet and try to be successful.
Thank you, Professor Watawala, for the insightful sharing. And I think just before I go to Jamie, I can see you just raised your hand there. And I think one of the things that has been mentioned quite a lot is, for almost 2 years now, throughout the pandemic, is that if there's any, I guess, a silver lining in all of this, is that this accelerated adoption of technology has indeed drive all of us, not just the accountancy profession, all of us to rethink about our strategies on how can we leverage on technology in particular to come up with better strategies to be more effective and efficient with our operation and so on. So I think what you have shared with us, some of the points that you've shared with us, is very much relevant, Professor Watawala. Jamie.
Yeah, thank you very much, Orki, and thank you, Professor. That was very illuminating. I did want to just pick up on one comment that you made about the focus, being sure that we don't lose focus around some of the essential and central responsibilities of the professional accountants in terms of control and costs and those sorts of things. I mean, I certainly, speaking on behalf of ACCA, we absolutely understand and see the importance of that core remit. And that's just as important as it ever was, really, just because we have this huge opportunity in terms of things like ESG and those sort of areas for the future. That has to be balanced with, and of course is linked through to our core responsibilities as well. And certainly we spend a lot of time looking at the future of the finance organization, thinking about the future role of the CFO, thinking about how that is going to shape, and evolve. And that core governance, stewardship, controllership piece remains of course essential, especially in a world where we know that stakeholders are demanding more transparency over organization performance and behavior, of course. So these two things are not mutually exclusive. They of course are very complementary, and we see that as absolutely critical for the future.
Thank you, Jamie, for that. And I can definitely vouch for that as well, because we can also see that some of our member organizations, including this year, have done some discussion and activities on this as well. So yes, it is important for us to understand these new emerging challenges, just the driver of changes around us, but also we need to understand the very, very core fundamental aspect of our profession as well. But what Professor Watawala has highlighted in his sharing. Yeah, so, and thank you, Jamie, for your response to that. Now, I would like to, I can see a question in our Q&A on technology, and I would like to wrap up this part of the discussion on technology. So I would like to throw this question to any of the panelists if you want to respond to this. It's a short and brief question, but I think hopefully someone from the panel can respond to this. I mean, in your opinion, what risks will be taken if we have slowly respond to technology? I mean, if we don't adapt to technology, if we don't adopt technology, any particular risk that you think accountants need to be aware of?
I don't know whether you want. I'm
sure,
happy to take that off.
I
think there's always a a slight risk of irrelevance, to be perfectly honest. technology is not going to be the panacea for the profession, and there are other things that we need to be incredibly mindful of. But it will redraw jobs in accountancy. It will indelibly shape and change how we do work, the nature of work, where work gets done in the profession. So we have to adapt and evolve and ensure that we embrace technology, and actually for all of the opportunities that it does present, because it does give us untold opportunities in terms of being able to deliver and add further value to the enterprises and organizations in which we work. You know, certainly we see tech as a huge opportunity, but it's an opportunity that has to be embraced, because frankly it's the future, and we have to move with the future.
Thank you, Jamie. Anyone else from the panel would like to add to that? No one from the panel to add?
I think on the technology, most of the professional bodies had to do a lot of changes, and they should, because one of the things is the retraining, and also looking at our syllabuses about the professional training that is involved. Because we need to now, with the new things on the analytics area, the data analytics and data visualization. So I think a lot of changes have to be done on the syllabus and curriculum of all our professional courses. So that's a key area that many will have to look into, because if we do not do that, we will find that the people who are passing out as professional accountants may not be able to fit into the society or into the business sector. So that is one area that we should give a lot of prominence and also special care.
I think just to add to what the professor was saying there, Roki, the other thing that I think about technology is, and digital generally, is that the true power that comes from that is when it's combined with the other capabilities that are increasingly prized, you know, across the profession now. So we can't look at technology in isolation. It's that combination factor of combining digital skills with other capabilities like collaboration skills, like insight skills. The professor talked about data here. It's the combination that is going to be incredibly powerful, and that's a consequence of really how things are just changing in terms of how business models are changing, how organization constructs are changing. Again, my point about how work gets done, where work gets done, how we deliver work is fundamentally shifting. So it's that combination of capabilities, absolutely including technology, that's going to be vital for our enduring relevance.
Yes, thank you for that, Jamie. And we do have a question, and this is actually so interestingly, this question actually came up in the Q&A function earlier today. So someone probably cannot wait for panel session 3 and then decide to submit this question, which I think is very much relevant to our discussion. It is still on technology, and Jamie, I would like to stay with you on this one. It is on technology, but perhaps we're going to look at it from a slightly different perspective, Gen Z. So so we received this question earlier today. I mean, the question is this. I mean, I'm wondering if the panelists believe that Gen Z in particular has an advantage in dealing with changes that come with technology. I mean, Gen Z, many said Gen Z as a digital native. I mean, I guess twofold of the question. I mean, in your view, will this new generation of talent interact with the drivers of change, particularly technology, differently from their more senior colleagues in the profession? And the second part of the question is that for the, I guess, the older accountants or the senior accountants, and what should we do? So I guess the one who's asked the question, this question is identifying him or herself as the older accountant. What should we do to best adapt to our clients' demand for us to deliver better values through technology? Jamie.
Well, they're two great questions, Orki, and they tap into something that I'm very passionate about, which is how do we ensure as a profession we are attractive globally and in the region to the future talent that is amassing at our at the gates, so to speak. I'm also slightly careful sometimes about generalizing too much around one generation versus another. I think we have to be slightly careful around that. But I don't have any doubt that this is a generation who are incredibly independent, resourceful, multidimensional, and actually I think as older people or more experienced people in the profession, I think we can learn a huge amount from them, and not just from a technology sphere. I think more generally we can learn a lot from them. ACCA, this year we ran, I think it's possibly the largest ever study across Generation Z in accountancy. We had over 10,000. We ran a study. We had over 10,000 responses from young people aged up to about 22, so starting to come into the profession now on their aspirations for the future and what they wanted from the world of work, what they wanted from accountancy, and it was a fascinating study. Okay, and what was really interesting about that from a technology perspective was clearly, you know, they have absolutely, you're absolutely right, they're the digital natives. They've grown up with technology. They're entirely wired into technology. They expect technology in the workplace. You know, it's something that they look for when they're thinking about joining organizations. And actually a lot of businesses, it's really interesting, a lot of businesses are saying we use these young people as technology ambassadors in our organization, and almost like in a reverse mentoring process, thinking about the older generation in the workplace, so using these guys to help develop those technology and digital skills right across the workforce through collaborative practices. So yeah, I think they will increasingly bring new ideas, bring new solutions to their organizations and to potentially to clients who they work with in terms of, you know, that technology interplay and angle. I think the other question around you know, what's the implication for older or more experienced people in the workplace around this? Well, I think all of us have to be slightly prepared to disrupt ourselves when it comes to technology and digital. You know, we have to adapt, we have to embrace what's happening in the technology space. And that ties very much into this piece around continuous learning as well, doesn't it? Because as the trajectory of our roles and careers evolves and change, you know, we have to be open to continuously learning new capabilities and new skills. And that's just, you know, that's as true of technology as it is around other capabilities that we need to acquire. So I see Generation Z as a huge opportunity for this profession. They are going to bring those digital skills, and I think we need to learn from them and embrace them. Actually.
Thank you, Jamie. And before I give the opportunity for the other panelists to perhaps share their perspective on this, because you mentioned one word that I find very interesting, attractiveness of the profession. So attractiveness, you mentioned about attractiveness. We received a question. Actually, this is a question addressed to panel session 2, which I think could also be relevant to our discussion for this panel. So the question is that it is important to hire the right candidate for the job, but besides retaining talent, what can we do to enhance the attractiveness of the profession? I mean, isn't this one of the key challenges that we are facing collectively as a profession? I mean, we just talk about Gen Z. Now I think we also need to. I would love to hear your thoughts, panelists, on this particular part. I mean, how can we make our profession attractive, especially for the younger or the aspiring accountants?
I don't mind starting as Orki on this
please,
one,
Jamie.
and then happily defer to the other panelists. I think we've got to be very clear on the brilliant opportunities that exist in our profession for the future. I talked a lot about some of the emerging opportunities. And when we think about the younger generation particularly, the other thing I'd say about them is I do believe they're very purpose-led, and they look for organizations that are very purpose-led. And we think about things like the environmental, social governance agenda, we think about the opportunities for the profession in really making a difference, and contributing to building sustainable organizations that survive and thrive for the long term, and that do create value across all stakeholders and across society. And you can link that very clearly back to the jobs of the future in accountancy. So I think we have to articulate that for this younger generation and make them understand how a career in accountancy can actually help them make that contribution and give them purpose, and be very clear about what those prevailing career opportunities are going to be in the future. So I think it's about clear messaging.
Yes, I mean, one of the things that our profession has been discussing quite a lot of especially in the last couple of years is sustainability. I mean, young people wants to make real changes, and sustainability issues are something that's not only relevant to all of us, specifically to them as the future generations, right? You can actually, accountants can make a difference in terms of, especially if you're using sustainability as an example, right? And that's the opportunity for especially young accountants, aspiring accountants as well. So you can actually make a difference there. Perhaps briefly, if any of the panelists would like to chip in on this one. Any
okay,
thoughts?
if I can just make a comment. I think Jamie has given a very, very good description of the Gen Z, but he did not speak on the marketing aspect. Now the social marketing is something that they would really be the forte in which all these younger people will be looking at. So we find that this area of social marketing, maybe Facebook and the other areas, are playing a very, very major role. And I think we need to go in that area. But okay, if you can just give me a few minutes. There was one sector, of course, it's relating to the profession itself. That is the SME sector and the SMP, that is the small and medium practitioners, relating to the digital competency. Now, SAFA, we have a collaboration with the European Federation of Accountants and Auditors for SMEs. And we have worked with them. Actually, this was something that was started by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, but taken forward by the European Federation of Accountants, where they have a digital competency maturity model for small and medium practitioners. Now, this is something I'm sure would be useful for the AFA region also, because this will enable us to determine the digital competency of these small and medium practitioners to improve their efficiency, and also to give this digital competency to the SMEs. So I just thought that I will leave this with you, so that if you all need any sort of assistance, for SAFA would be able to make this available to you.
Thank you, Professor. And SMEs and ASEAN SMEs and SMPs is a priorities for AFA as well. So hopefully we can discuss this further to explore this potential collaborations. Jamie, I can see you raise your hand, please.
Yeah, no, sorry, I'm conscious that I don't want to take up too much time, because I'm sure that our other panelists have some reflections here. I think the professor raised a very good point actually about smaller organizations, SMPs particularly. Certainly we see these across the world as incredibly innovative, entrepreneurial. Clearly a lot of smaller practices are digitalizing rapidly. That's a very exciting area for younger people coming into the profession to really make a difference in terms of the clients that they're working with. I think the other thing I didn't cover in my initial response around this was, and I just did want to mention it quickly, was around thinking about attraction into the profession. Peer influence is huge for this generation. And I think what we certainly need to think about is how do we showcase and bring to light, if you like, young people who are already making a big impact in the profession, because I think this is a generation who are incredibly peer influenced and want to understand and share experiences with their peers. And that's another way in which we can really put out those very important messages around opportunity in the profession in the future.
Yes, thank you for that, Jamie. Yelena.
Would like to say a couple of things, and from perspective that I think that this crisis casts a spotlight on anticipation and agility, making it clear that our profession must take the opportunity now to rethink our curriculums. So I think we are, as a profession, very good in adding the content, but sometimes we are not rethinking through, that maybe we don't need all of that content anymore, that we need to more be focused on some new skills and competencies which are really needed in the market. So I can say for professional organization, I can suggest to mobilize all relevant stakeholders and experts. So, and POs can facilitate that dialogue among them and, let them help you to design your vision for future learning and development. So in the same way, you can learn from your regional organization, other POs, and IFAC is here to help as well. Thank you.
And that's a very good point and valid point. Thank you for highlighting that, Helena. Hairani?
Yeah, okay. Just a few points that I concur with Jamie when he said on the attractiveness of the profession. So when we are going to market this to the profession, to the young people, we need to inform them on how to add value to them, not merely an accountant, not merely on a monthly salary being paid, right? So it's all based on how they can contribute to help the company, for example, because in a way they can, when they read the financial reports, so they inform that what's the future for that company. So that's a very, how they can add value to their profession as an accountant, not merely, earning monthly salary. I think that's all.
Yes, and that's a very good point as well, Hairani. And actually, I would like to stay with you. And I think we need to bring this discussion just briefly to address some of the questions that came in on the role of the profession as well. But before we do that, I mean, you're talking about attractiveness of the profession, but let us try to bring that discussion into the perspective of the Asean Cpa Initiative, Hairani. Let's put it as a attractiveness of the Asean Cpa Initiative, right? I'm sure the regulators, the governments of the ASEAN member states are doing collective efforts to continue to promote this initiative and try to implement the MRA and so on. But just I guess I would like to hear from you. I mean, the perspective of, I guess, the regulator. I mean, what are your expectations? I mean, in terms of the role of the profession in the region, particularly in supporting implementation of the Asean Cpa Initiative. I mean, for example, like AFA as a regional body, of course, we are committed to contribute to ASEAN objectives, but it will be good to AFA and the stakeholders of the profession to hear from you, from the regulator, particularly on this initiative.
Okay, so from the perspective of a regulator, just to inform, the Asean Cpa certification shows that the holders have attained recognized level of practical competency and professionalism. So the certification also allow them to be recognized by the accountancy community in the country of origin and across the ASEAN region. So to help this one, so the PAO plays a significant role, not just by encouraging their members to register as Asean Cpa or RFPA, but also in identifying, developing, and providing capacity building programs that are tailored to prepare and equip the profession with the necessary competency and professionalism that could qualify them to be referred as Asean Cpa. So we need that sort of quality, and this Asean Cpa are ready to serve the demand of the businesses and stakeholders in ASEAN and also in other host countries. So with that also, we also need to, very important to drive the demand for the CPA across the ASEAN, where PAO also play important parts in spreading the awareness on the importance of hiring accountants who are recognized as qualified and competent to support the organization. So this can generate sustainable financial returns for them. So I think that's just a very important role of PAO for that.
And I think that's a very important insight from you. I mean, I think in terms of what we've been doing as a regional body, working together or collaborating with our member organization, but also partners and stakeholders in the region to contribute to this regional initiative. I mean, you mentioned one word that I think is very much resonant to many, if not all of us: capacity building. I mean, it is one of the our priorities as well. And I will try to link this to a question that I think perhaps I would like to address this particular question to you, Helena, as an IFAC or IFAC PAO DAG representative. I mean, capacity building. I mean, we know now that many PAOs in the region, but also perhaps outside of the ASEAN region, who are also IFAC member bodies, are still dealing with the impact of the pandemic. So I guess just to share with our audience, I mean, what AFAC has done to help PAOs to deal with these difficult circumstances. I mean, recognizing that PAOs are still also responsible to provide values to their members. And just to link this to Hairani's point on capacity building, I mean, despite the challenges, PAOs still need to deliver, to play their role, to provide, to facilitate capacity building of their members.
Definitely, they have a very important role. Thank you for this question. Because for the sake of the time, I will just share very shortly just one of IFAC initiatives, which I think will be very relevant to our audience. So, as you said, we are all aware that strong POs are needed to support a robust and competent accountancy profession. So, to continue relevance and sustainability of POs is there a critical issue for advisory group. As my dear colleagues mentioned, the profession is facing multiple challenges. So strategy and planning that address recovery and reimagine the role of the association and profession are necessary. So, but the recovery and development process are not the same for all organizations. And so one-size-fits-all approach will not work for IFAC diverse global membership. So over the last year, this advisory group has worked to create a frame of reference to help POs in strategic discussion with the leadership, governance, and management to determine next steps. This framework is based on common concerns we know exist for all POs, regardless of size or location, such as operational resilience, financial viability, education, digitalization, of course, and communications. So as of July, the framework is publicly accessible via the IFA Global Knowledge Gateway. So it's designed to drive a scalable input and ideas and collate resources from across IFA Global Network. As I have a fellow panelist from ACCA, I must give one of examples of valuable resources accessible through this recent initiative. ACCA serves as a technical advisor on the advisory group and has contributed a practical financial modeling tool for POs to utilize on their journey to financial viability. The model, when filled in with information and projections for PO, can enable the effective allocation of resources and focus on revenue and scenario planning. I encourage all organizations to leverage the framework and the available resources on the IFA Global Knowledge Gateway. So, and I would like just to say that, you know, if you ever have any questions regarding the resources, you can always contact the advisory group via the contacts from our IFA webpage.
Thank you. Thank you, Jillian. And I just to echo that, I think I would like to encourage the PAOs in the audience to try it and attempt and have a look at that model and have a look at the tool, and then try to do the assessment as well, just to assess the level of your PO, I guess your status of your POs, and when it comes to your resources, where you are right now. And especially now is a good time to do it as well. I mean, the last couple of years has been challenging for many of us, so perhaps it is a good time to reassess where we are right now in terms of our position, in terms of our strength, in terms of our resources, financial and others. So that is a good resource to use for the PAOs in the audience. And thank you for that, Jelena. But that's from the perspective of the profession and for the PAOs, and and perhaps I would like to bring Professor Terry into discussion here. And this is a question that came up through our Q&A platform as well. I mean, when we talk about capacity building of ASEAN accountants in particular, Professor Terry, I mean, how can we deliver a professional program? Perhaps you can also share this from the perspective of TFAC. How can TFAC deliver its professional program to develop its members, so your members can be qualified and ready to compete, I guess, with the competition that came from outside of the region?
So it's a very good question still from my perspective about how to building capacities of the accounting professions for the TFAC in Thailand. So in the TFAC provides a lot of ways to improve and building capacity for the members, especially for the accountancy professions. So for examples, we're gonna have a lot of trainings and a lot of conference to gonna have to provide a lot of insights into the new comings technology, new coming knowledge. So add on this program, we're gonna have provide a lot of the cutting edge professional certificate as well. Coming, for example, nowadays we try to develop about the forensic accounting. Something is rather interesting for the demanding of stakeholders to require about the not just the accountant to report only the information. So the stakeholder require more about the insight into the informations from the reporting, from the everything. So for example, the regulator in Thailand require more accounting professions to report something wrong, abnormal transaction, something like a money laundering in Thailand. So this is a new regulation in Thailand. Is a good news or not? I'm not sure, because the new law is to come up with the new responsibility as well, and the punishment, right? As you see, so in Thailand, the TFAC is try to plan a lot of things to prepare about the building capacity, a lot of in both sides, technical and the soft skill as well. Especially for soft skill. So I think the TFAC is trying to change about the behavior of accounting professions a lot. Just not emphasize onto the technical side only. So we try to change the behavior to bring about everything like a new concept and paradigm of the accountings in new era. For example, try to train our members to face with the super VUCA, you know, VUCA, velocity, right, uncertainty and complexity, and not just the VUCA, the normal. It's a super VUCA nowadays. Just you can see a lot of things happen after the pandemic 19, right? So everything have the problems under the water will show up everything, right? So and try to tell our members or accounting professions that try to open mind to all the new technologies and to look forward and try to learn the new things and to be like a technology literacy, not just to perceive about the benefit from the technology, but we have to know about the concerns and risks of technology as well. So for the rather interesting questions from you, Oki, that for the older accountancy, right? So how to manage this? I think so. We can like link together between the new generations and the older generation together to bring knowledge together. Don't let anyone in the behind, right? To go together in order to bring about the good collaborations between the generation, something so can help. This is something that the TFAC try to help and to bring about the capacity building and another thing the TFAC in Thailand try to emphasize on the practice. So it's not just learn, you have to practice as possible as that you can. So if you practice and you use your literacy something in the technology in the real practice in the real work, it's gonna help for the older generations gonna help capacity and not and the TFAC as a PAO is not just like institutions and it's like a trainer as well, like a partner with a member, something like this. This is a thing and that in Thailand can help the accounting professions. Okay.
Thank you for sharing your insights into the I guess the Thai's accountancy profession and what the AFAC is doing to continue to support your members to deal with this I guess this continuously changing challenges. Professor Watawala, briefly, would you like to share SAFA's perspective on this?
From SAFA's side, I think one is the main area of soft skills, because I think everyone has spoken of this, but without the soft skills, it is really, they will never be able to make their grade or maybe able to succeed in their career. We in fact just concluded a ceremony where we had it was a quiz and elocution contest for our students. We had about 9 member bodies that were involved in this. We just concluded it last week, and it was really it was online one. No one would have thought that we will have it online, but it was a very, very great contest, and we found that all the students who did extremely very well. And I think communication is one very good thing. And as I said, SAFA has been able to bring all these bodies together. And what they do is, before our contest, they have a contest in each of the countries. Each of the countries will have an elocution contest and a quiz contest. And from that, the best 2 will be selected for the SAFA competition. So actually our body, the CMA Sri Lanka, we hosted it, and it was a great success. Then the other point that I want to say, I think Tira has already mentioned that, is the practical training. We are talking of technology, all these areas, but the real work of a professional accountant is his practical training. It not only allows him to practice what he has learned, but also the networking and to getting used to the business side of things, because and how we can do it, and the problems that come up. So practical training is one we should give more push. That will enable us to be at a very, very higher level compared to any of the others, maybe MBAs or anyone. If you talk of this practical experience, and I'm sure Jelena is someone who can take that forward from the IFAC side, please give a lot of emphasis on practical training, which will take us really to the top.
Thank you, Professor Watawala. So many, I guess, interesting insights shared by our panelists today, and that I believe, I think our audience will hopefully take back to their respective organization, especially the PEOs in the audience, to bring this back to their organization and try to discuss this and try to see and identify how they can try to implement some of these interesting ideas in those respective PAOs. So thank you for sharing that, Professor Watawala. So I would like to now perhaps just try to bring back all of our discussion, to try to sum up our discussion with I would say a call for action for ASEAN accountants. So after we hear from the panelists about these drivers of change, about the role of the stakeholders, the profession. So now let us talk about our call for action for ASEAN accountant. I mean, for the ASEAN accountant or aspiring ASEAN accountants in the audience, or even accountants in general who's now joining us from anywhere in the world. Let us try to come up with our call for action. Let me start with Hairani. I mean, being the newly appointed chair of the Asean Cpa Coordinating Committee. I mean, if you can give an advice to, I guess, a current and aspiring ASEAN CPAs in the audience, I mean, particularly on what they should be focusing on to prepare themselves in dealing with the changing ASEAN business landscape, what would it be?
Just a very short one, okay. Just because the ASEAN CPAs should look for and seize opportunities that would allow you to grow, build and capacity and get recognitions. And on top of that, they should have, must be able to adapt their skill sets to keep up with the ever-changing technological landscape. That's a very important one that's being raised by Jamie and Elena. All this technology, because currently we cannot do without technology. Okay, that's all from me.
Thank you. That's a very good point, Hairani. And I will ask this one final question. I guess just a brief key takeaways from our 4 remaining panelists. So I will go to Helena first, Jamie, and then Professor Terry, finally Professor Watawala. So this is a question coming in through the Q&A, is that so many changes happening around us. I mean, it can be intimidating, especially for young and aspiring accountants. Now, how can we better prepare ourselves to adapt to these changes? I mean, this particular person said that he or she have read somewhere about future-ready accountants. I mean, how can we prepare ourselves to be future-ready? Let me start with you briefly, Helena.
There is a more opportunity right now for our profession than ever before. So the role of CPA is changing, and accountants now can do more to assist companies in building resilience, becoming more sustainable, and measuring and reporting on sustainability. So we are in the best position to design, execute, and lead sustainability-related services. So we need to invest in education now, and we are going to come out of this with a competitive advantage. So my advice would be POs should integrate sustainability into students' curriculum and continuous professional development. And to remain relevant, accountants cannot just produce the number. They're being called to tell us the larger story behind the numbers and help solve the social needs in the progress. So POs must start preparing for ESG reporting revolution, and stakeholder engagement and member education will be the key. And just one more last sentence. Our global connectivity help us to cope with the demand of our work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Elena, for that. Jamie.
Oh, super, Rohit. It's a great question to finish off on, and I've really enjoyed the discussion today. I think it's been incredibly enriching. I talked a little bit in my presentation before about this point of inflection in the profession, and I think that's absolutely true. I think this is a great opportunity for accountants in the future. There is so much change right now, and probably looking at this from an individual's perspective, I'd say the one piece of advice I would give is this point around adaptability and having an open mindset and being prepared to some extent disrupt yourself as you look forward, and being open to continuously learn and acquire those new capabilities. Elena's just talked about some of the specific opportunities. We think about the sustainability agenda and so on. This is it is a point in time where we can really take those opportunities, but we have to be prepared for that change. So adaptability, open mindset, curiosity about learning for the future.
So many great, I think, advices. I think that I guess hopefully our audience will take note of. I mean, to be future ready, we need to remain relevant. We need to be adaptive. So many important things shared by our panelists. So please, everyone, please do take note of that. Professor Terry.
Yes, thank you. So for me, I think the accounting professions should be like a empty glass, to welcome the new things and to keep momentum for learnings. And I think the new thing is not the obstacles, it's challenging. So I think for this, I want the accounting professions to look forward and they try to learn the new things and welcome everything in your life, because I think everything will be, another thing is that I want to have the optimistic perspective as well for this. I think to combine of this, I believe that the accounting profession will come up with the successful professions for sure, for me.
Thank you, Professor Terry. Last, definitely not least, Professor Watawala.
Let me first of all thank Oki and the AFA for this invitation, because this has really brought together AFA and SAFA. I'm sure that this will be a start of a new set of activities that we can do, because listening to what you all have done, exchanges that we have had have been great. And I'm sure that SAFA and AFA can combine and do wonders in the future. And just two things we have been discussing. I want to say that there is a private sector and the public sector. Most of these, what we discuss now, is on the private sector, so I don't have to mention anything. But on the private sector, let us show that professional accountants are people who create value to the organizations. And not only the value, but they will also make them sustainable, and also they will serve the society. I think this message we need to give, because today everyone thinks that the private sector is only making money, only making profit. Let us give this message. We are there to serve the society. We are there to create the value, and you will have a demand. Then on the public sector, was it the largest amount of money that we all pay as taxes and others goes to the public sector. Now, I have read the international transparency international reports, the surveys they have done. They have said in countries where there are more professional accountants, the corruption rate is low. Let us show this to the public, because and if the government accepts this, now this is one area that AFA can be really recognized as a body that can produce professional accountants who can join the government and reduce the corruption rate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Watawala, for that very strong message. And with that, I think that should be the end of our panel session. Unfortunately, this is the end of our panel discussion. Thank you again, everyone, for those inspiring conclusion to our panel discussion. And I guess one thing certain is that AFA, as a regional body, we will continue with our commitment to collaborate with our member organizations, the PAOs, of course, our partners and stakeholders, including to facilitate the Asean accountants capacity building, as mentioned by Hairani. So, and also to help in preparing them for the emerging challenges that will continue to reshape our business landscape, and with that, the future of our profession. On behalf of AFA, I would like to thank once again our presenter and panelists, Jamie Lyon, our panelists, Jelena Misita, Haja Hairani binti Haji Sulaiman, Professor Laksman Watawala, and finally, Professor Teracai Arun Ruang Sirilert. Thank you, everyone, for your insightful sharing and excellent exchanges. That will be the end of our final panel session for today. So thank you, everyone, for your attention. I will now pass the session back to our host, Monica.